Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the PA Path Podcast. Before we get started, we would like to extend a special thank you to our episode sponsor, the Southern Illinois University Medicine Online Doctor of Medical Science degree, now enrolling for 2024. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Tiffany Maxwell, who is the Department Chair and Program Director for the University of Maryland Eastern Shores PA program. Dr. Maxwell has been a board-certified PA, specializing in military and family medicine for over 18 years. She is a subject matter expert in academic accreditation and program development, and she built her current program from the ground up, earning program accreditation. She also serves on the Accreditation Public Safety and Health Committees for the University of Maryland Eastern Shores. As always, you may learn more about our guests and their programs on our website at papathpodcast.com. So Tiffany, welcome. We're just excited to have you join us, and we'd love to learn about your path to become a PA before we start learning about your amazing program. So what led you to this profession in the first place?
Well, I think my path was kind of traditional. I think I was at that transition phase of PA education. So right before I got in, PAs were mainly firefighters, EMT, Army corpsmen, and now most students come directly out of college. So I think I was on that transitional point. So when I started, I was one of the students that came directly out of school, which was very unusual. So my average classmate was probably about 35 years old and had tons of experience. And here I was as just a student coming out of undergrad. So my path was also traditional because back then, no one really heard of a PA. So mine was more of someone in passing saying, hey, have you heard of PA? And I'm like, no, I haven't heard of that. And then it led me to doing some research, finding out where the programs are and just applying. Up to that point, I had never seen a PA. Never heard of one. So I was learning about the profession as I was applying. And then I entered into the Sophie Davis Biomedical School PA program, which is in New York City. And then from there, I got a chance to just meet a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing professors. And then I actually learned what the profession was about. So I kind of did everything in real time. And my path to PA education, that's where I started. And then once I started, I did see the change. I did have the foresight to see that the education or the training of PAs were going to change because back then it was a bachelorette degree. So back then I just rolled into master's and then rolled into a doctorate because I did not know where the career was going to go. Because as I said, I think I was really at a transition point for PA education. So that's how I got started into PA education. It was kind of let me try and see. So,
yeah, I think that is an unusual story in terms of just learning as you went. And clearly your academic background led that institution to say, you know how it is now that they're trying to the other side of admissions, where we're like, what do they know about the profession? Are they sure what they're getting into? That program had to have seen something in you that really said to them, look, even if she's not as familiar as what maybe some students are or we expect, she's got something, she's that diamond in the rough that we want to bring on. Is that maybe possible?
It is. And I remember sitting there and when they was asking me why I wanted to be a PA, and I couldn't even take the possession off the ass at that time because I remember the board members or the faculty just sitting there with their arm underneath their chin, and they were just like, you look really good on paper, but we don't know if they experience how young and have you ever done anything in medicine? And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
And so, but this was the transition into it. And I remember my program director, shout out to Adrian Llewellyn. So he said, I think she's actually going to do fine. And here I am. And he said, she has grit. She's well-rounded. And he said, I think he kind of understood this was going to be the way. So he wasn't afraid to take a chance, as you say, and it all worked out. And it was funny years later when my classmates, I was like, look, I'm a program director and, on the list. And they were like, wow, coming in, most of my classmates were foreign medical doctors and corpsmen. So it was really a different dynamic. So it was really at that transitional point of PA education, but it did.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about your clinical career, because you spent a lot of time doing military medicine. Where was that? What stations were you at? Things of that nature.
Well, I'm not in the military, so I happened to marry a Marine while I was in PA school. So that was another thing I did that was probably untraditional. I got married in PA school on my emergency medicine rotation.
Oh my goodness.
So at that time, when I married him, we moved to the Virginia area. So, and then he was like, "Oh, we're getting deployed to Japan." And I was like, "We are?" And so the first job I actually took was local Gerald Family Care with an inner city family practice. And then we moved to Japan. So then I started working at the Naval, Okinawa Naval Station Hospital there. At the time, they didn't allow really spouses, didn't really have all of the paperwork it took. So most of the time there, I wound up volunteering as a PA there. So with full rights and privileges. So I became a family medicine in the PA arena. And so I started seeing service members and their children, and I actually absolutely loved it. And then when we returned to the States, I was selected to work in the Pentagon. So I worked in the Pentagon for probably 5 years. As a deployment health specialist within a De Lorenzo TRICARE Health Clinic. And I founded the women's clinic there because women had a lot of deployment issues. It was just like women had to run around, and being the only women in the clinic, I was like, well, why do they have to do like 28 appointments and the guys have 1 appointment? And they were like, yeah, you fix it. Go ahead. So I did. Me and an Army colonel nurse, and we kind of just made it more, I guess, equitable for women just to come and get everything done and then leave together. So that way they didn't have to come back, because for men, that wasn't the same. They had 1 appointment, but for women, for women's health issues, they always had to come back, make another appointment. So just being able to streamline there. So that's kind of my path into that segment. And then from there, I volunteered at deployment health events where they had the, I guess, reservists. They would come in. So then I would do that on a weekend as far as, or per diem, I would fly out to the area that if they needed help, they would put out a call and I would attend and kind of help them get in and out for deployment. And then after that, I joined education, and then I still love medicine. So my last assignment was at the Geospatial Intelligence Agency in Springfield, Virginia, where I also did deployment health, but just on the other side of, I guess, the hot side. I figured that on it.
Yeah. So what a great opportunity for you, because I remember when I was deployed in the Gulf War, this would have been 1990, 1991, clearly men were in charge in every leadership capacity across all the branches of government. And of course, back then you had General Colin Powell, General Schwarzkopf, and there was clearly not a consideration for the unique needs of women in theater, yet we had plenty of women in theater serving. At that point, women couldn't serve in combat roles, but they were serving as military police officers or serving on the flight line or serving in the healthcare system. So what a great opportunity for you to be part of the solution to make it more equitable.
Yes, I was very happy to be able to do it. And it's just like in college, my sorority sisters were military members, and, family members I met across the way. Even, my husband was active duty, but I made so many friendships of women that were active duty also. And everyone, as you know, if you're in a military family, everyone sees everyone somewhere at one time. So it was just happy enough to be able to serve and to make a difference. I think the clinic was grateful, and so were the service women. They were grateful for it as well.
Yeah, since you mentioned that, Tiffany, you just brought up another thought, which is we talk sometimes about rural health and how being a PA in a rural community puts you in that position where you're at the grocery store and patients are right there with you. It's a much smaller community. You're right. The military family community is like that. So that had to be an interesting challenge for you as a PA when you're caring for service members and their loved ones, and then seeing them in a different role as a military spouse.
It is. And a lot of times, even when we were stationed in Okinawa, Japan, it would be the women I would see would be at the supermarket with me, childcare centers. I would see them in the bank. So we were really a part of the community. And sometimes they would tell me their needs, like, hey, would you know where I can get this at? Or if they had special concerns about women's health or anything like that. And I also, if they had like events, they would ask me to come and speak to events about young women events, any events surrounding women's health. And I was happy to be a part of it because you're a part of a community. So when someone calls you, you come.
Tiffany, I always like to hear from people about what their hook into education was. What was the thing that sort of snagged you and pulled you into the education sphere? Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how you landed in the education realm?
So I knew I always wanted to do education because that's why I went fully through to get my doctorate at a time no one had heard of it. So most of the time when I started my doctorate, I was, again, one of the youngest in my class on non-traditional. And so actually someone reached out to me and said, hey, I know of a program that was looking for someone to join. And literally someone called and was like, hey, what's your level of interest? And I said, well, this is my level of interest. I've always wanted to do it, but it was just waiting for the opportunity. So I was provided with mentors and I just kind of went full throttle. I just said, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I made the transition and here I am.
As they say, the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear a little bit about, as Kevin said in the introduction, you had the opportunity, like I did, and like Kevin is doing now, you had the opportunity to really build a program from the ground up. And that is such an incredible privilege. And so I'm curious to hear your input on, truly what that was like for you to really to kind of start at the beginning and say, what do I and my team want this program to look like, and some of the things that you thought about and the context that you considered as you built this program.
Well, one thing, because it's a rural place, so the Eastern Shore, it's located on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, which is a very rural area. So one thing I had to, and I'm from New York City, so contrast and the accent. So one thing I had to realize is that community matters. And I had to really get the buy-in of the community, which I did not anticipate that being such a big deal. But that was such a big deal because it's rural medicine. So really going out to the local hospitals, and even before we thought of the program, and I was like, we're never going to get this off the ground if we don't have buy-in from the community. So reaching out to the local PAs, asking them about how they feel about having a program. Most of them were excited to have a program that had gained momentum back into the community. So really reaching out, as soon as I got there, the first thing I did was meet with local PAs. I really didn't do any administrative stuff because I knew I would need their support to sustain the program. So also meeting with external stakeholders like hospitals. There are no med schools where we are. So the PA profession is probably the top provider at that time. So really just trying to get with the hospitals and see what they needed, what they wanted, what they were interested in. So lots of buying, and then really trying to get local PAs to be a part of the program. So, recruiting and advertising to the local community, because I knew it was only going to be as sustainable as the community was willing to put in.
Let's take a quick break for a word from our episode sponsor.
Hey PAs, ready to move forward in your career? Enroll in an online Doctor of Medical Science degree with Southern Illinois University Medicine. In 1 year, they can help you build confidence, refine your clinical or educational skills, and help you become a better advocate and leader. Best yet, you can earn 37 Category 1 CME credits for your coursework without leaving your job or family behind. To learn more and to apply, visit siumed.edu/DMSC. What about as you design the curriculum? What sorts of things were you thinking about, with your history in education, kind of knowing what you knew from experiences that you had before, and then having the opportunity to say, okay, we get to build something new. How did you think about building a curriculum, and what do you feel like you incorporated in that is maybe a little bit unique or forward thinking?
Well, I looked at the population where we're going to serve. So we are a historically Black college or university. So most of our students are first generation. Most of our students are, I guess they sometimes can be non-traditional PA students. And I already know the things and some of the I guess I could say some of the disparities that sometimes minority students do face and some of the challenges. So I wanted to build a curriculum sensitive to that. So we are a 28-month program, and we have a slow climb with a heavy emphasis on basic science. So that way, some programs like shoot all the way up. But our program, I knew if we wanted to attract students, that was our mission at the time. And the mission was representative students from what PA classifies as underrepresented students. So I knew if I was going to cater to that population, I would have to build a sustainable curriculum that they will be able to do and be able to support the institution as well as the students. So we have a slow climb. We still have hands-on anatomy, so there still is a full dissection. We start, like I said, we go through anatomy of physiology. We go through 3 semesters. We go through 3 semesters of Clin Med. So we really, and we vertically and horizontally align the program. And then we built in clinical problem solving courses to put everything together each semester so that they have an opportunity to build the Clin Med, the pharmacology. So I really did expand the curriculum. We have longer Clin Med lessons, longer pharmacology. There are standalone classes, and we built so that it's, kind of a stair step that it builds on each other. And we really lengthened the program to give them a slow ascending climb versus that typical one time and you miss. And we were able to retain majority of our students by doing that.
That's great. So you have a retention mindset. It sounds like when you built the program, you purposely had the length of it to be around consideration of retention. And then also that scaffolding that you do is very purposeful. I have colleagues who talk about sometimes the shorter programs, it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. But it sounds like your program is purposeful in the sense of, as you said, building that scaffold very slowly so that there's a way for them to build upon the knowledge that they get as a foundation, and it has resulted in good outcomes, it sounds like.
Yes, it has. So it's still a very vigorous program, but we just focus more at if we can strengthen that science foundation, then when they get to the medicine courses, it's still, PA education is still a fire hose, but at least you don't have holes in your cup at least. Because it's still like, our saying is like a fire, we're getting a turn on a fire hose and with a cup, but at least we try to minimize the holes in a cup. So at least you can catch what you catch in your cup. So that's where that's what we try to do with the curriculum. And it's proven to be pretty successful. So that's what I was excited about. And the other part is the rotations. Our students really have no competition because there were no med students there. So there were the top providers as far as being able to do things, and they see rural things. So most of the time when they get there, it's really hands-on because it's usually the one doc in the office like, hey, grab something, help us. They're really engaged and they really value the students' help. So they really incorporate the students. So our students don't do a lot of standing around watching. When they come back, they're exhausted. And, that's a good thing for us. Like they're absolutely exhausted from all of the work and things that they do because they are really used in a clinical setting. So that's a plus for our students being in a rural community.
Yeah, I think if you look at the data nationally, most of the students are coming from urban or suburban areas. And so when you want them to go do a rural rotation, there's a lot of pushback. But the truth is, one, if you recruit from rural areas, there's a passion to go serve rural communities, as it sounds like you do. But also for the students who aren't from rural areas, in my experience, I trained at a suburban institution, but my rural rotation, I got to do the most. I got to see the most. The doc said day one, go in and see the patient in room 1 without any orientation. So I think to your point, that's some of the best learning opportunities available.
Yeah, they do get it. And they are excited about what they get a chance to do. So definitely during callbacks, we kind of prep them. We have lecture preps, like here are the most common things you should see. Here's where you need to pay attention to. So they really get great opportunities. And most of them are very thrilled about their experience working on the shore and rural. So they get a chance to see a lot of comorbidities, a lot of things that you don't see in other communities. They get a chance to see hardcore medicine. And especially when they're inpatient, they really get to see hardcore medicine, especially on the shore with the opioid epidemic. Most of them have experience, have given Narcan, have been in the fight. So I just remember one of our professors that were walking through the door, we was on the phone talking about just the next day, he was like, I had someone pass out. I have to give Narcan. And he just literally got to work. So that community
Wow.
especially is really ravaged by the opioid crisis. So that's another thing they get to see. And so they get to see it firsthand of what it looks like. So what people see on the news, they get a chance to experience. And that was true for even in COVID. They were seeing the people coming in barely breathe. So they got a chance to see a lot in that community.
Yeah. Yeah. One of your program goals focuses on cultivating an admissions process that's holistic in nature. So can you talk to us about what that means to your school and what are you really looking for in your applicants as you consider that match to the mission?
Well, one thing I say our process is holistic because if you looked on my website, none of my faculty look the same. So when we sit at the table, it is a total different perspective. And so when we're looking holistically, it's really kind of checking ourselves. So as far as the process, how we interview, how we screen, and all of us bring something different and something new to the table. And that is always very helpful. So when we look for applicants, our first goal is we look for students that are local because we want local people in a community. The shore is they have a healthcare shortage area and a medically underserved area. So we give preference for students or for students in that area. We also look for the different minority makeup there. As you know, that's where the Eastern Shore is where a lot of the chicken plants are at. A lot of the service workers are at. So we have big Haitian population. We have the migrant farmer population. So we really encourage students of different nationalities, backgrounds, and that speak those languages to help support the community. Because usually around migrant farmer time at one clinic, they just roll up with the bus, offload, and we send students to that site and they're instrumental in helping different populations that are there. So when we look at our admissions process, we make sure we're including and fostering places where all students will thrive.
So when you think about the applicant to your program, what can an applicant do to set themselves apart, to make themselves attractive to your program?
I tell the students too, we give away all our secrets. So pretty much I tell them attend because we have information sessions and our administrative admissions coordinator, she does really good. She does in-person ones and she does online. So I say, if you really want to take a look into the program, please come for information session. We give you all the information that you need. Also, we also have a tailored customer service approach. We talk to the students that call. If we see a student is lagging behind, we are very intentional. So we tell students, call us with your questions. Don't wait to the end. We're not an institution that says, hey, look on the website. We actually talk to the students. Most of our students are first generation. There's no one that understands this process. Most of them are out there on the island, and we understand that. So we tailor our conversations with them. We schedule meetings like, how can I help you be successful? Like, what is it that you're unsure of? How can we help you? So we are really student-centered where we support our students from the very beginning. So as soon as they call in, we assist, how can we help you?
So when you speak with your graduates, at the tail end of their experience with your program, and maybe when you've talked with some of your alumni, what do you hear from them? What do they reflect upon that says, this was what made my experience really valuable or really different, or this is what prepared me in a unique way to practice clinically?
A lot of them are really surprised by the resources. They're shocked when they go in and they speak to others, students at different programs. They said, we really got a lot of resources and we really had a lot of support. And they really do appreciate the one-on-one with we're a small program, so they get a lot of one-on-one time. And when they meet other students, or sometimes when they're in the urban environments, they realize that the students did not have the same experience as the one-on-one, have access to your professors, the one-on-one access to your preceptor, and all of the resources that the program pulls for the student to help them be successful. So a lot of them appreciated the resources and they feel really confident about going out because they really had that time to ask, like, hey, I had this question and then someone stopped and took the time to answer it. So they really do appreciate that. And they realize when they speak to all their peers, it's not always the same. So they are very appreciative of that.
So it sounds like you have a program, a philosophy, if you will, of a lot of high touch in terms of checking in on them, mentorship, advisement, high levels of support, which seem to be helping you towards your great outcomes so far.
Yes, so far so good. So I think that's our secret sauce as far as helping student. We intervene early. And, at times students don't understand, like, oh, why are they always, asking, are we okay? Are they giving us extra work? But once they graduate, they say, haha, we see. So it's nice now that some of them have graduated. Now they understand the method to the madness, what we were doing, what we were trying to accomplish. Now that everyone has successfully passed, everyone, passed their boards. So everyone is now they understand now that they're on the other side of it.
We always tell them, trust the process, just trust the process.
Yes, that's hard to do. And, I'm glad you say it too, because that's where it's just like that's the openness statement. I need you to trust the process.
Yeah. We always talked about, let us drive the bus. We'll get you to where you need to be. But, sometimes I get a little nervous how close that bus gets to the cliff.
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, we always like to give our guests the last word. And so if there's anything we didn't get a chance to cover with you or any parting words of wisdom you'd like to provide before we close, we would certainly give you the opportunity.
Well, I would like to say the PA profession has been a blessing to me and to my communities and surroundings. And I hope that the students that embark on this journey, they have the same experience and they are able to have that sense of personal fulfillment and sense of purpose for their community.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we want to thank our guest, Dr. Tiffany Maxwell, for her time and insights into the profession and for sharing the story of her program. We also want to thank her for her clinical service to both military and civilian communities and for her service to our country. We want to extend a special thank you to Southern Illinois University Medicine's online Doctor of Medical Science degree for their support of this podcast. Please visit siumed.edu/DMSC to learn more and apply. Tune in next time as we continue the conversations with our PA colleagues and leaders around the world.